everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. Let's do another episode of Rock and Read. Today I will read you the second half of chapter 13 of the book Janis, Her Life in Music. Today I'm recording this video Monday, October 4th, is actually the anniversary of Janis's death. Janis Joplin passed away on October 4th, 1970 from a heroin overdose in her hotel room. She was only 27. A life cut short. So much left to give. Rest in peace, Janis. You're still missed by many fans. You better believe I'll crank up some Janis Joplin tunes today. Now let's begin. With each performance, it became clear that most in the audience were there to see Janis. Rehearsing almost daily, Big Brother added to its set and reworked older arrangements to avoid the guitars getting in the way of her vocals. They had built a repertoire of nearly 50 songs, and the new ones prominently featured Janis. She and Peter Albin collaborated on Roadblock, a frenzied rocker with male-female vocal interplay. Sam Andrew wrote Combination of the Two, an ode to the San Francisco scene, his vocals punctuated by Janis's psychedelic scatting, woo 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 yes, and whoa whoa whoas, and her Otis-inspired, we're gonna knock ya, rock ya, sock it to ya. Before Janis joined Big Brother, the group had attempted George Gershwin's Summertime from his 1935 opera Porgy and Bess as both an instrumental and with Peter Albin on vocals. Janis had loved the song since girlhood, singing along to the Porgy and Bess soundtrack LP. More recently, she discovered Nina Simone's 1959 version. Sam Andrew, who crafted an introductory vamp to the song, averred that Summertime was a particularly effective tune for Big Brother because it was a change from our usual harum-sarum romp. It gave Janis the chance to show what she could do with the classic tune, a minor key with its major six. To introduce Janis's softly sung vocal, he devised a guitar part based on Bach's Prelude in C minor from Seth Joplin's favorite, the well-tempered clavier. I played the theme of this prelude at half tempo, said Andrew, a student of music theory, and it was the perfect starting point and central motif for Summertime. Andrew later wrote of Janis's vocal achievement in her interpretation. It was as if molten metal had been poured into the rather conventional form of her song. Her voice was so high in emotional content that it split into two lines, one model line accompanying another at an exotic distance we felt rather than heard. Sam Andrew also praised what Janis could do with a consonant. In her phrasing, she hangs on that initial N in Nothing's Gonna Harm You. It is one thing to stretch out a vowel, but elongating an N is something else. The mouth is closed, and there seems to be nowhere to go with the sound. But Janis sang a sort of conversational melisma. After months and months of practice, Janis was stretching her vocal vocabulary, adding nuance and texture to her timbre. In rehearsals, she finessed techniques such as breaking her vocal over a syllable. On Combination of the Two, Janis experimented with adding vibrato and a gravelly rasp to her vocalizing. She also continued working on her interpretation of Ball and Chain, adding more dynamics to her song's slow, burning, emotional build. At Carpen's insistence, Janis studied briefly with San Francisco vocal teacher Judy Davis, who had coached Judy Garland, Barbra Streisand, and Grace Slick. Janis apparently didn't click with the legendary teacher, an expert in the physiology of vocal sound projection, but Janis saw her often enough to learn exercises that strengthened her vocal cords and aided projection. Davis taught Janis how to breathe properly, to engage her diaphragm to support her singing. Though the lessons were short-lived, Janis gained stamina and learned how to control her instrument. Eventually, in the words of Bowdoin College museologist Tracy McMullen, Janis could take a scream through several dynamic levels, from PPP to FFF and everything in between, at will, and turn from a clear, powerful tone to a rich, gravelly one on a dime. Big Brother finally got a booking at the Fillmore, though Carpen and Bill Graham locked horns in a contentious relationship, quibbling over fees and other details. Nonetheless, Graham hired the group for a coveted spot, opening 3 of 6 nights for Howlin' Wolf, the blues icon Big Brother had seen once during its Chicago residency. The last weekend in April, they performed with another blues idol, Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton at California Hall. Though always jittery before a gig, Janis was particularly anxious about singing Ball and Chain with its composer present. From the stage, she enthusiastically acknowledged its author, Since her folky days, Janis always identified to audiences as the originator of the songs she sang. Thornton apparently appreciated Janis's version and told a journalist, "That girl feels like I do." Big Mama respected the way Janis made a song her own, as Thornton herself was inclined to do. "When I do a song by Jimmy Reed or somebody," Thornton once said, "I have my own way of singing it. I just want to be me. I like to put myself into whatever I'm doing so I can feel it." Janis saw herself as being part of a sisterhood of song from her early influences Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith, both of whom influenced Thornton, to Odetta, Nina Simone, Etta James, Billie Holiday, and eventually Aretha Franklin and Tina Turner, all of whom she would praise on stage and in interviews. While Janis's local fame was on the rise, her relationship with Joe McDonald had fractured. From the beginning, McDonald was attracted to her looks, sense of humor, and intellect, he said, but though they seemed to get along very well on almost everything, they ran into problems over politics and LSD. Janis mostly abstained from doing acid, preferring drinking, while McDonald enjoyed tripping. His anti-war stance was all-consuming, and for the most part, Janis wasn't into political trips at all, he explained. She was suspicious of them. That was the one big thing we used to argue about. Like the Grateful Dead, Janis and Big Brother concentrated on their music rather than protesting the Vietnam War. But perhaps the biggest problem with their relationship was their competitive egos, both control freaks, as McDonald put it. When Janis and McDonald strolled the height, adoring fans often approached her, to Janis's obvious delight. During Big Brother's gigs, she was treated like a goddess, mobbed after shows. McDonald might have chafed at the attention she got. Though Country Joe and the Fish had a strong following, theirs was nothing compared with Janis's. She was driven and ambitious, focusing hard on her music and career rather than catering to her old man. Janis and McDonald's arguments escalated until finally he packed his bags and moved back to Berkeley. Though McDonald recalled that our careers began to take over, and we just didn't have time to be a couple anymore, Janis's friends remember her being deeply hurt by the split, her skyrocketing popularity offering no balm. "Joe dumped Janis," said her old Austin friend Jack Jackson, yeah, that's a real name, who now worked for the family dog. "She was vulnerable, and it really her head up." Janis was learning that the fame she coveted could not fulfill all her needs. About a month after their breakup, Janis approached McDonald with a request. She said, "Before we get too far apart, would you do me a favor and write a song for me?" he recalled. So he composed the ballad Janis with the lyrics, "Even though I know that you and I could never find the kind of love we wanted together, alone I find myself missing you and I." The tune lent itself to Janis's pretty valid voice, McDonald said, but Big Brother never played it because the song was too sweet and folky for their style. Though Janis didn't want to sing it, she placed a vinyl 45 recorded by Country Joe and the Fish into her scrapbook. The track also appeared on the band's second album, issued in late 1967, around the time McDonald remarried. Janis poured her anguish over the broken relationship into her music, co-writing with the band the gut-wrenching "I Need a Man to Love." She varied her vocals on the song, beginning with a straightforward blues approach and gradually building into an emotional torrent, screaming, "This loneliness, baby, surrounding me." Big Brother also collaborated on an exorcism of loneliness, "Catch Me Daddy," which kicked off with Janis's banshee vocals, a full-throttled scream that became a hard rock standard in the 1970s via Joplin acolytes Robert Plant, Deep Purple's Ian Gillan, Aerosmith's Steven Tyler, and David Johansen, who glammed it up in the New York Dolls. When not rehearsing or performing, Janis looked for distractions elsewhere, sometimes with Hell's Angels and young male fans at the Avalon. One afternoon, strolling the height with her dog George, she met 20-year-old San Francisco State College student Mark Bronstein, the son of influential Bay Area art dealer Ruth Bronstein. He organized free concerts in the Panhandle and worked at the Psychedelic Shop. We struck up a friendship just chatting and talking, Bronstein recalled. Janis often visited him at work, where she bought candles, posters, and other exotica to decorate her apartment. Occasionally, the pair went to the movies, with Janis usually choosing foreign films and loaned each other books. A Janis favorite was Thomas Hardy's tragic Jude the Obscure, its doomed protagonist surely resonating with her Saturday Night Swindle philosophy. Though Bronstein had a girlfriend, he and Janis eventually became casual lovers. She just couldn't face being alone, he explained. Bronstein was later hired on to work with Big Brother's road crew. Janis found more affirmation from film director Richard Lester, who asked Big Brother to appear in his new movie to be filmed in San Francisco. Lester, who directed the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night and Help, as well as the black comedy How I Won the War, featuring John Lennon, cast Big Brother to appear in Petulia, starring Julia Christie, Richard Chamberlain, and George C. Scott. The drama examined issues such as spousal abuse and mental illness against a flower power backdrop. Manager Julius Carpin, who obtained a $1,500 fee for the band, hired LA-based lawyer Bob Gordon to negotiate with Warner Brothers, Seven Arts to retain ownership of the Big Brother song used in the film. Gordon would become Janis's confidant and longtime attorney. Janis relished the movie-making experience, during which she learned how to make an impression on camera. Big Brother's scene in Petulia was filmed at the venerable Fairmount Hotel, where they performed during the movie's opening scene. Richard Lester was trying to get a signature San Francisco vibe into his movie, Dave Getz explained. He got the Grateful Dead playing at the Fillmore, and he got us playing at the Fairmont for all these rich people who supposedly hired a psychedelic hippie band for their big fundraiser. In her scene on stage, clad in a short black dress and purple tights, Janis sings, shakes, and plays percussion on Roadblock, with the song sounding like hill country church music. According to Sam Andrew, Janis's voice is high, lonely, and haunting, with an inflection that sends chills up your spine. After her a cappella opener, Big Brother jumps in with a rhythm and blues lick reminiscent of Louis Jordan's Rag Mop. The song's style contrasted strangely with the dinner jackets and evening gowns who were dancing to it. Though Petulia was no blockbuster, it holds up well today, and it is a rare visual document of a pre-famed Big Brother performance on the cusp of the Summer of Love. In May '67, Chet Helms and the other hippie provocateurs and entrepreneurs held a press conference officially announcing and naming the impending Summer of Love, predicting that some 100,000 people would flock to San Francisco in June. Hyde-Ashbury had exploded from a small community of like-minded freaks and heads coexisting with racially diverse residents to a sea of runaways, homeless people, the mentally ill, and drug dealers. Like North Beach and the Beats, now the neighborhood had become a tourist attraction, with gray-line hippie-hop buses crammed with gawking tourists navigating the congested streets. Such hippie-land jaunts were advertised as the only foreign tour within the continental limits of the United States. Almost as foreign as Hyde residents, embassies from Los Angeles came calling to beseech San Francisco bands to play their music festival planned for mid-June. Producer and record label executive Lou Adler and his partner John Phillips, founder of the Mamas and the Papas, hoped to enlist San Francisco bands for their Monterey International Pop Festival. The promoters offered to pay artist expenses, but no performance fees, with profits donated to various charities. Most San Franciscans saw this as an attempt to cash in on their scene. It looked as if Hollywood wanted to tie up the San Francisco counterculture with a pretty pink ribbon and sell it to America. According to Sam Andrew, after meeting with the promoters and their team, Grateful Dead co-manager Rock Scully reported, "We all got the same vibe. They're here to exploit the San Francisco hippie/love phenomenon by building a festival around us, and Janis and Country Joe and Quicksilver and the Airplane." Bay Area artists disdain the crassly commercial John Phillips penned Scott McKenzie hit San Francisco, "Be sure to wear flowers in your hair." To vouch for their credibility, the promoters enlisted festival committee member Paul Simon, festival publicist and Beatles PR man Derek Taylor, and consultants Bill Graham and Ralph Gleason to convince the San Francisco bands to perform. Big Brother would be among 33 acts playing a total of 5 concerts over 3 days. 7 San Francisco bands, LA pop stars like Phillips Group, board member Johnny Rivers and the Association, folk rock stalwarts, the Byrds, and Buffalo Springsteen, and numerous artists flying in from New York and London, including the then obscure Jimi Hendrix Experience and a little-known UK band called The Who. On June 16th, Big Brother and its entourage, including Janis's dog George, recently hit by a car, caravan down the coast. The Monterey Fairgrounds, where Janis had performed twice over the past 4 years, looked nothing like before. The midway $1 admission for those without concert seats resembled an exotic brazier filled with purveyors of posters, candles, crafts, clothing, and incense. Tickets for the recently refurbished 7,000-seat arena ranged in price from $3 for the bleachers to $6.50 for a folding chair in the orchestra section. Large areas were sectioned off for record executives, VIPs, and the media, to whom Taylor issued 1,000 press passes. The festival brochure promised that the matchless hi-fi sound system ensured that the sound carries well beyond the arena into the strolling area, with acclaimed engineer Wally Heider recording the performances. Opening night featured primarily LA pop plus Eric Burdon and the Animals and Simon and Garfunkel. On the 24-acre fairgrounds, bands mingled with fans, some wearing hippie finery, others sporting short hair and crew necks, with late-night jams on makeshift stages at a nearby college camping area. Crowd estimates range from 25 to 80,000 as fans arrived over the course of the weekend to wander the fairgrounds. Owsley dispensed thousands of tabs of Monterey Purple LSD. Those were real flower children, Janis later recounted wistfully. They really were beautiful and gentle and completely open. Big Brother played second on Saturday afternoon, deemed Underground Day, and few in the audience knew the band. Janis was so nervous it was crazy, John Phillips remembered. Backstage, Lou Rawls was telling her, "It'll be fine, don't worry about a thing." She was rattling, just shaking. But then, as soon as she hit that stage, she just stomped her foot and got real Texas. After Chet Helms enthusiastically introduced the band, singling out Janis, she let loose a strong and confident "Down on Me," her vibrato immediately engaging the crowd. All those afternoon shows in Golden Gate Park had prepared her and the band for this moment. The combination of the two opened with Janis's rhythmically scratching the gyro alongside Sam Andrews' guitar solo, followed by her joyful whoops as he sang his ode to San Francisco. Her soaring scatting sailed along between the verses. The audience remained riveted as James Gurley played an edgy solo to close the number before Janis's "We're Gonna Sock It To Ya." Big Brother immediately segued into the chaotic Harry and finished it before the audience could figure out what hit them. Peter Albin, doing the song introduction, singled the start of Roadblock. Backed only by Dave Gett's drums, Janis and Albin's voices blended well on the folky intro, "Trying to Find My Road." Then, as the tempo picked up, Albin took over lead vocals, with Janis's call and response adding energy. For their last number, Gurley let loose his long, twisted guitar lines to open the slow blues Ball and Chain. Transported, as if singing to herself instead of thousands, Janis's eyes closed, softly intoned the opening lines, building gradually from her vulnerable alto to soulful strutting to the cathartic climax's multi-textured screams and howls. The audience was stunned. The crowd's intensity pushed Janis further, with the song's dynamics enhanced by her pauses, followed by her wounded yowls. Fans leapt from their seats, ecstatically applauding her vocal acrobatics. Janis wrung every ounce of emotion out of the song, sliding effortlessly from bell-like vibrato to fervently testifying, "Tell me why," stomped her foot in time with the words, ending the bloodbath with, "I'm gonna love you till the day I die." While Janis softly sang the title line, explosive applause drowned out the sound. It was as if the earth had opened up, Joel Selvin wrote 25 years later in his chronicle of the festival. Monterey Pop, the audience was spellbound, startled at the crude power unleashed. She was the first real hit of the festival, a taste of what everyone had come to see. Documentarian D.A. Penbaker captured the reaction on film by zooming in on Mama Cass Elliott's face, her awestruck expression and lips mouthing the word, "Wow." "Janis had everybody riveted," said Cass. "I had heard from David Crosby about this girl from Texas who could sing her butt off, and I had never seen anybody work without a bra before. She was sexy. It was an electrifying performance. When she came off stage, she was crying," John Phillips recalled. "She couldn't believe she had gone over so well. It was such an emotional experience for her. Janis stole the show. She just took it." Later, standing in the wings, she asked Butterfield band keyboardist Mark Nefelton, "Do you think I'll make it?" What Penbaker and his camera crew did not capture was Janis and the band's actual performance. Adler and Phillips had hired the director of the Cinema Verte Don't Look Back, documenting Bob Dylan's 1965 UK tour, to make an ABC TV Movie of the Week for a $400,000 deal between the network and producers. The San Franciscans, still suspicious of being burned by LA Sharpies, had refused to sign the release form handed to them before they went on stage. Since the bands were performing greatest, their managers Carpin, Scully, and Danny Rifkin, the Dead and Ron Polte, Quicksilver, wouldn't allow them to be filmed without being paid or given creative control over the footage, but Penbaker, a 35-year-old New Yorker by way of Chicago, was determined to get Janis in his movie. She came out and sang, and my hair stood on end, he recounted. We were told we weren't allowed to shoot it, but I knew if we didn't have Janis in the film would be a wash. Afterward, I said to Dylan's manager, Albert Grossman, talk to her manager or break his leg or whatever you have to do, because we've got to have her in this film. I can't imagine this film without this woman whom I just saw perform. Backstage, Dave Getz overheard members of Grossman's clients, the Poppers, who had played the night before, saying, "Wow, did you see Big Brother and the Holding Company?" John Phillips immediately approached Janis, telling her that she and the band could perform a second set on Sunday night if they agreed to sign the film contract. Janis spotted Grossman, whose clients Paul Butterfield and Mike Bloomfield's Electric Flag were also in the bill by Saturday afternoon. She ran over to him and asked, "Should we allow ourselves to be filmed for the ABC movie?" 41-year-old manager, known for his shrewd deal-making, said simply, "Yes, I think you should." Janis, who evolved from band newcomer to main attraction in 1 year, urged Big Brother to participate, but Julius Carpin absolutely refused to allow the group to sign without being paid or given creative control. Over several hours, Janis became more frantic and determined, pleading her case that such national exposure was much more important than a payment. Carpin would not budge, Getz recalled. All these meetings, Janis would talk to us. She'd talk to Albert, then we'd meet with Julius. It came down to a face-off between Janis and Julius. She said, "We have to be in this movie, and if it means getting rid of Julius, so be it." The band finally agreed, and Carpin was forced to acquiesce. Big Brother was scheduled to return to the stage on Sunday, the last evening of the festival. During that day's Manatee, the buzz among the packed throngs remained focused on Janis's performance the day before. "I was in the front row, the press section," recounted the Village Voice's Richard Goldstein, one of rock's pioneering critics. Journalist Robert Christgau was sitting right next to me. When we saw her, we were knocked over. From the first notes, her voice stunned me with its primeval drive. I knew instantly that Janis would be a big star. The first big hit was Janis Joplin, Christgau reported in his Monterey coverage for Esquire magazine, a good old girl from Port Arthur, Texas, who may be the best rock singer since Ray Charles, with a voice that is 2/3 Willie Mae Thornton and 1/3 Kitty Wells, and a fantastic stage presence. Her left nipple erect under her knit pantsuit, looking hard enough to put out your eye. Okay? As she rocked and stomped and threatened any moment to break the microphone or swallow it. She got the only really big non-hype reaction of the weekend, based solely on her sweet, tough self. Michael Wyden, a Newsweek reporter who had been transferred from London to San Francisco, wrote, "In the bright sun of Saturday afternoon came one of the most fantastic events of the whole shebang, with the voice of Janis Joplin. Janis leapt, bent double, and screwed up her plain face as she sang like a demonic angel. It was the blues Big Mama style. Tough, raw, and gutsy." The group behind her drove her and fed from her, building the total volume, a sound that has become a San Francisco trademark. The final number, Ball and Chain, which had Janis singing, talking, crying, moaning, howling, long solo sections, had the audience on their feet for the first time. Record label execs also took notice, including Columbia's new president, Clive Davis. Janis had no billing, he recalled. It was just Big Brother and the Holding Company. She was absolutely riveting and hypnotic and compelling and soul-stirring in such a way that she clearly was representative of an epiphany that changed the rest of my life. Janis's own favorite set of the weekend was Saturday night's climax, Otis Redding reaching an audience that had not yet experienced his bracing, soulful sound. Since Janis had seen him at the Fillmore, he had successfully toured Europe, backed by the superb Stax/Fold Records house band, Booker T, and the MGs, and the Marquis horn section, both of whom accompanied him at Monterey. "Shake!" Otis, resplendent in a sharp green suit, demanded, and the audience leapt to its feet for the first time since Ball and Chain. Following Shake, Redding sang only 4 more songs, due to the late hour and a sound curfew, but each was potent. His composition Respect had just spent 2 weeks at #1 for Aretha Franklin, the second from her Atlantic Records debut. Introducing I've Been Loving You Too Long, Redding, who had smoked a joint before going on stage, asked, "Y'all are the love crowd, right?" With horns blaring, Redding turned the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction into an R&B song. Janis swayed, standing on her folding chair next to Mark Bronstein, as Redding finished around 1 in the morning with a throbbing, "Try a Little Tenderness." In his memoir, Living with the Dead, Rock Scully gossiped that Janis made her way to Otis's motel room that night, but Peter Albin discounts the tale, certain that Janis would have boasted about such a conquest to her bandmates. Regardless, she once again absorbed the great singer's emotional punch and sexually charged showmanship, translating it into her own style of soul power. Finally, Sunday evening, after a workmanlike set by New York's Blues Project, Big Brother returned to the stage, this time introduced by hip comedian Tommy Smothers, co-host of the CBS variety show The Smother Brothers. Clad in flared leggings that matched the clingy white mini dress with gold thread she had worn on Saturday, Janis glowed in the lights. She lined her blue eyes with kohl and fluffed her hair out around her shoulders. She adorned herself with just a few strings of beads and a couple of buttons. The band was given half as much time as before, with Penn Baker requesting combination of the two and ball and chain. Those who saw both shows declared the second inferior to the first, but nevertheless, the film's crew cameras documented a powerful, life-changing performance. "When you see what she does at Monterey when she sings Ball and Chain," Penn Baker related, "it was so amazing yet so simple. I was on stage behind her watching her wiggle her butt, and she just took that song to the cleaners." Bob Newworth, working with Penn Baker that weekend, recalled, "Watching her perform was like watching a great violinist. It was the reaching for the notes that held the drama." Still on camera, Janis skipped off stage, ebullient, hopping up and down when she reached the wings. Between sets, at one point, she sat on the stage edge with Penn Baker, chatting about the band's future. Soon after, she joined an under-the-stage jam session led by Jimi Hendrix that included Mama Cass, Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, The Who's Roger Daltrey, and Eric Burdon, singing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The musicians were boisterous and loud. "We were making a lot of noise," Eric Burdon said, and Bill Graham came down from the stage and said, "Shut the up, you're killing the other acts." Hendrix and The Who would play explosive sets that night, but most journalists and fans left with the name Janis Joplin on their lips. Another breakthrough that weekend, Indian star maestro Ravi Shankar was impressed too. "I felt her energy and her feeling of being tortured," he said, and at the same time her tremendous musicianship. Very, very strong. According to Lou Adler, Otis Redding got their souls and Ravi Shankar drove them out of their seats. Janis tore their hearts out. That's the end of Chapter 13. Let me know what you guys thought of Chapter 13 in the comments. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Until then, rock on.